Tom Albani, greaterpitching.com. Okay, here's Ethan from Maryland, 16 years old, about 150, great kid. So here's his video, Adam, and I hope we can learn a lot from just this one video and how much more potential he actually has and some of the things that he does really well. So let's get him started here. I'll put him up into leg lift. And again, like most young kids, he's going to lift the leg up and he's not really going to move out. And that's something that we want to work on to get the body moving. Most guys are already moving their hips forward as the leg is rising to the top, somewhere within here, or maybe even as it's coming down, they start getting more aggressive. But even he doesn't do that as he's coming down. So what we want to see here is how much of his body is shifted inside that line when his leg is at this point. And it looks like he's got quite a bit of his body inside the line on this side instead of on this side. So most of his body we want to see on this side of the line. Okay, we've got to get the momentum moving so that he can get some power into front foot plant and then push that power up his body. Okay, so let's see how he comes out of his leg lift into some weight shift. Okay, you'll notice here how he just kind of drops everything down. So again, he's not really moving out even as he's dropping the leg down. He's just sinking the back leg, flexing it, putting a lot of forces going down this way, but nothing too much going this way. And that's the issue. So he's got a very slow start, dropping his whole body. If I put a line up here by his head, you can see how much he goes down before he even begins to go out. Okay, and he's also separating his hands quite early. Well, not really early. He's separating his hands at a good time. It's just taking him so long to get his body going that his arms are high and his body hasn't moved out yet. So we need to get the body to move out sooner and quicker so that we can become a little bit more dynamic in our leg stride. So as we get into his load, which is about right here, we want to really see that the body, let me back up a bit. If I draw a line here at his hips, when I talk about a player that's moving down and out, the guys who do this effectively, let's move this down just a little bit more where his hip line is. Guys who do this effectively are going to move their body in this direction. Their hips are going to move in that direction. The middle of his body will actually follow that line. And let's get him out to front foot plant. And let's get this line out here where his hip is. So what I mean is that if this represents the middle of his body, the middle of his body should follow that line. But as you can see, it doesn't follow that line. It drops down and then moves out. So he has a change of direction, which isn't really very conducive for converting power well, because you're not moving the body as fast as you could had you went down the line and had you moved down and out at the same rate. So if his body is moving down and then pushing across like it is here, he is now interrupting energy and not really pushing his body with the potential that he can. So let's move him into his leg load. And this is where he's loading his body. He's got one foot on the ground and he's now flexed with his back knee and now pushing the body forward. And again, in this type of a delivery where he's now got to start his body over again coming from here, we usually see a high angle of the knee to ankle. And what we want to see at this point is this line in line with his front hip. And it's just a little bit too high. And again, it's because of a poor weight shift in the beginning. Okay, so let's move him out to his leg drive and let's see what happens with this back leg. Does this back leg extend, turn and extend, and does the back foot kick through, and does the hip kick through as he's coming into front foot? Let's take a look. Okay, so I see a knee that's caving in. I see a heel that's popping up, and I don't see the hip exploding. So this is what we mean by triple extension. we need to see the foot digging into the ground, that toe really curling down hard into the ground, the knee turning but straightening, and the hip kicking through just at front foot strike right there. But take a look at his hip. It's closed, knee is bent, and the heel is popping up, and I don't see much drive coming from that foot. If I did see drive coming from that foot, once this foot gets down in the front, this foot would already be cleared about right there. He does get a little bit of a kick. I will give him that. He does get a little bit more of a kick, but it's just very late. It's very late. It's too late because his front foot's already down. So now the back hip is going to be slow, and it's going to cause the stabilization of the front knee to be slow. So let's see how well he stabilizes and transfers this energy. So he kicks through here. Now the back hip's got to come through, the front leg's got to stabilize, and he does just about right there. So when we're looking for hip and shoulder separation, we're looking for that at the point of the front leg stabilizing, which is about right there. He gets a little bit, that hip is starting to move a little bit further than the shoulder, which is decent, but his front leg hasn't stabilized yet. Right there it's stabilized. And look at how far into his trunk rotation he is. So very little hip and shoulder separation, and look at how far his trunk is now rotated. So I can't even read his shirt. He wants to be somewhere within here when that front leg is stabilizing, maybe just about there. So he's got very early trunk rotation, and because of his trunk rotating early, his throwing arm does not have the time to receive the forces because now it's getting dragged through. So what happens here is if he's able to stabilize and stay closed, he gives time for the body to convert the power up the leg through the hip to the trunk, and it gives the arm more time to load before it starts to move. But what happens is when the trunk starts to rotate too soon, before the front leg is even stabilized, then it doesn't really get a chance to receive those forces, so the arm kind of gets dragged through instead of lifting up towards the ear and then laying back. So his arm path right now is very low because of the early trunk rotation, and he casts his elbow out way out in front of his chin, which is very stressful on the arm there. So because of that early trunk rotation, it's really a velocity killer, and it strains the arm terribly. And in most cases, guys will get something called hyperangulation, where the elbow, as the chest is open there, the elbow is behind the scapula a little bit, and in his case it is just a little bit, not terribly, but enough that it could cause an injury later down the road. So quickly, let's recap. We need to get him moving a little bit sooner, getting some energy flow through his system, pushing down the mound as he's going down into his leg load. Okay, we need to see a little bit more push from the back side, a little more explosive power from the glutes and the hamstrings and the calf, obviously, to kick through that ankle as he's landing here, which will get his hips to clear a little bit sooner, separate from here a little bit more, and will create a later trunk rotation, which will give his arm more time to receive the forces, and it will abduct above the ear, and then it will lay back nicely. But before we end this, I want to just take a couple of looks here at the angle of his trunk. Angle of trunk, 70 degrees, but the angle of his trunk is important, but it's got to be a reaction to the forces, not the fact that he's just kind of leaning the trunk forward. In his case, he's just kind of leaning the trunk forward a little bit, not really getting a nice, powerful reaction from the lower body. And let's see where he's at when he releases the ball. Again, a decent angle. I mean, most high velocity guys are in the 40s, upper 40s, low 40s, but the point is that he's got to get there the right way. I mean, you can lean your trunk out and get great trunk lean, but if you don't get it there the right timing and the right way, it doesn't really help you at all with velocity. All right, I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, give me a call. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.